Gab Talks by the Independent Press Award. I'm your hostess, Gabby Olzak. To participate in the 2025 Book Award competitions, please visit independentpressaward.com and NewYorkCityBigBookAward.com. On this episode of the Gab Talks, we're chatting with Sarah Lynn, author of Between the Lines. Sarah's debut novel was awarded a distinguished favorite in the 2023 Independent Press Award for New Fiction and the 2022 New York City Big Book Award for New Fiction First Time Published. Originally from Jackson Township, Ohio, Sarah's dreams led her to writing. She's lived in New York City, studied in Paris, and is currently acquiring her master's in mass communications from the University of Florida. And Sarah and I first met at this year's book camp in May. Lovely to see you again, Sarah. Congratulations and welcome to the Gab Talks.
Oh, it's great to see you again too.
Oh, you too. So, let's just start with your journey, Sarah. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to writing fiction, and really the moment you realized, I'm really doing this. I'm writing a novel. How did it all transpire?
Well, I also realized I have to update the back of my book now because I have since graduated. Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. Sort of went back to school later in life to get my master's, and so that is now behind me.
Thankfully, I get that, believe me.
Yeah, but I've always liked to write, even as a child. I would
Mhm.
kind of sit at the typewriter back then before computers were a thing and
Yeah.
and just make up stories and send and give them to my mom to read and she would she just got the biggest kick out of that and that encouraged me of course and sort of put it aside for a while and then I had lived in New York for a while and through the experiences that I had there things that I had witnessed thought I should write a book about these things and
And here we go, and then Between
yes.
the Lines. So without giving too much away, Sarah,
Okay.
what's the premise of Between the Lines, and how did the idea for this particular story come to you?
Well, it was based off of um some things that I had experienced. It's sort of a fictional take on that. Um, a little bit of things that other people I knew had experienced, and over time, I just pieced it all together
Yeah,
and thought, it as these things were kind of playing out, I thought, this is almost I don't know that I've ever read a story like this before, and just wanted to put that to paper. And it took me about 10 years,
wow,
just
quite a
you know,
journey, really.
yeah, um, just with um, you know, working and going back to school at different points, and
Sure.
my mother, my parents being having some health issues. So it was really a labor of love, and when I finished it, I thought, wow, I did that. I can't believe
You
I did
did that.
that.
Really, it's quite an accomplishment. People don't realize, that it really is a monumental accomplishment to write a novel, a book of any kind. It's amazing. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of thoughtfulness. What I love, Sarah, is that in the beginning of the book, you dedicate Between the Lines to, if I may quote, young women everywhere who have nurtured an unrelenting dream with fierce protection. I love that. It's inspiring. What was I'm assuming that that led you to your female protagonist, Ava. Tell us about that.
Ava is she's young and she's kind of starting out in life. She's moved away from her hometown to the big city. And she sort of has her dream job and she's also, open to love. I think when we're young women, we have certain goals in place or dreams in place. And, through her experience, the thing I wanted to communicate the most, to maybe other young women who, have similar dreams or have gone through similar experiences that Ava experienced. Um, I really just wanted to leave it on a note of hope
Mm.
and, um, you know, a lot of times we can have our heart broken, but there's still that's not the end of the story. There's still so many other things out there for us, and that was really the meat of that message.
Tell us
So
the premise of the story, Sarah, without giving away too many spoilers, just a little teaser for folks who are listening.
sure. Um, Ava is, as I said, she's moved away. She's moved away from her hometown to New York City. It's been a dream of hers. She gets a
She has a
job as
dream
a
job.
what's that?
She has a dream job in a magazine.
She has a dream job in
Yeah.
a magazine as a photographer, and she, finds herself dating this longtime crush that she has. He sort of goes away for a while on business, and she doesn't hear from him. But in the meantime, she starts receiving these emails, these messages that she thinks are from him,
Mhm.
and it sort of turns out it's not him.
Wow.
But the whole through most of the story, she's believing that it's this person, but it kind of goes to a place that she wasn't expecting, and it sends her down a spiral of really questioning everything that she's believed to be true, or
Yeah.
she's sort of green, she's sort of naive, and maybe this is the first time she's experiencing these things, and so she's not maybe as aware as she would be of, "Hey, this is a red flag. I shouldn't go down this road."
Yeah, how does in the I feel like what drives her in the beginning of the story is ambition. Like you said, she's new in New York City. She's living the dream of a young 20-something, fantastic job. She's got it all. How does that change and evolve over the course of the story as a character?
Well, she loves her work. She's very excited about it. Um, she's creative, and she has,
Yeah.
this fun, quirky mentor and who's also supportive of, this new relationship before it goes down, a darker path. Um, and once things start to fall apart for her in that relationship, um, it's affecting her work. Others are sort of like, or I should say, others at the company that she's working at are sort of like, hey, what's going on here? um, she ends up losing that, and just trying to make a go of it, but she's trying to sort through her own feelings at the same time. She's trying to figure out what the heck is going on with these messages that she thinks are from this one person. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I guess how far do you
It's a
want me to
very relatable
to go with
story.
that?
It's a very relatable story. I mean, I think that excuse me, we've all experienced that on some kind of level. How much of you, Sarah, or someone you know is reflected in Ava?
I would say a lot. She's maybe the younger Sarah. She's very true to herself. She's really naive, but um, she knows what she wants, and she's honest, and she's thinking, well, why would you say that if it wasn't true? That's her whole problem is,
Right.
she's believing these things because why would you say
She
that
can't
if it
she can't
wasn't true? I can't believe somebody would say something that
right. That is naivety.
is.
I like that you say that Ava finds healing and then comes into her own. How do you hope that your reader, Sarah, especially women, will relate or maybe learn from her story?
It's sort of, I don't know if I want to call it a cautionary tale, but it definitely has that theme in it where, kind of, don't believe everything you hear. Don't, especially if it's not right in front of your face.
Yes,
um,
yes.
but even through I guess I don't know, you could say maybe she was bamboozled, but there were other people are very much affected by that also.
Yeah.
Um, that's not the end of the story. There's still hope. You can still, maybe not to put all your hope in a person or a thing, but kind of find that, through God, or, through yourself. And, God always has more for us. Even when we go through hardship, even when we go through trial, it's not the end of the story. He can always heal a broken heart. And that is the main thing I would want to get across to the readers.
I love that. And Sarah, I don't know if you saw my questions beforehand, but that leads me directly into my next
You didn't.
question, which is I also noticed in your dedication page that you have a verse from Jeremiah. Why did you choose that particular verse? And does your faith, I can see the answer to this is yes, play a role in the creative process?
I chose that, for I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give, hope and a future.
Yeah.
That has been a life verse for me. It's been true so many times. Every time I think, oh no, the world is ending, this is it.
Yeah.
No matter what is happening, the it's always darkest before dawn. There's always the next chapter. There's always, um, life doesn't end there. And it's very important for me, I think, that people find, that truth, because that's where really true healing comes from. And God holds our future. We're not like, an island unto ourselves, trying to, we do our part. Um we move forward in faith, but ultimately, if one mistake doesn't void out the rest of our lives, it doesn't make everything null and void. So
Absolutely. I one mantra that I like to always repeat to myself is God's redirection is God's protection. Along the same
yes.
kind of lines as the verse. I,
Absolutely.
I love that. So something a little bit more of a funner, more fun question. This is your debut novel. Finish this sentence for me. Being a debut author feels like,
Oh, wow. Being a debut author feels unreal. It feels
yeah,
like, did I really do that? Sort of imposter syndrome a little bit, um, is it even really good? Like I still,
it
I'm
is really
still,
good.
I could edit this, forever. I could go in there and
I'm
just pick it apart and pick it apart.
Well, that's for the next book. So, did the story unfold the way you expected it, or did it take some surprising turns as you wrote it?
It definitely took surprising turns as I wrote it.
Yeah,
Some of it I was drawing from experiences, or, other things that I'd witnessed other people go through. And, that was easy to turn into fiction, but, there were definitely times that I got stuck, but then I'd have this revelation, and it would be like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. What else? And it would just come to me, and I would just type and type and type and type, let the dog out, come back and type some more.
yeah. A lot of passive thinking. Yeah.
Yes.
Have you heard any reader
You kind of need
reactions
like
that's
this.
I'm sorry, what, Sarah?
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, you have to create a space for that process to flow, which I think is probably why it took as long as it did. Just working full time and going back to school, you kind of have to
Yeah.
sink down into that space for that creative juice to flow. So,
Um, can you offer, based on that experience, can you offer any advice to aspiring authors?
yes, I would say, don't give up before you start.
Yeah.
Just start. Write one paragraph, and then write another, and then write another. Don't look at the whole, how do you eat an elephant? One
Yeah.
bite at a time. Um, and don't assume that you can't do it. Don't assume that, the finished product won't be good. Just take it in pieces, just one step at a time. That's the best advice I could give. And
That
ask
seems
people to read it after.
Oh, for sure. That seems to be a common thread amongst all the authors that I've interviewed is just take the time every single day to write. Even if it's just a paragraph, make sure you write it. And absolutely
Mhm.
have people read your work. Don't be afraid of criticism. Did you hear any reader reactions that surprised or moved you, Sarah?
Um, I did. I'm I'm sure we all say we're excuse me, our biggest critics,
Yeah.
but I just you never know when you're starting out. You just don't know. And so when
No.
I started getting positive feedback, that the beginning really drew them in, that it made them want to read the rest of the book. I thought, wow, really? Really? But I also, on the flip side, I think you have to be open to, if you're going to ask for feedback, you kind of have to be open to
Yeah.
all kinds of feedback. And so I did have one piece of feedback that was a little scathing, and I was like,
Really?
oh, yeah.
Really?
I mean, I would say it was beyond critical. It was just, flat out rude. But I just took it with a grain of salt, and I thought, well, not everybody. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea,
Right.
you know, and don't let that. I don't want to let that stop me from, maybe exploring other genres, or, picking up my next project. So
Which
it goes
leads me
both
to
ways.
Yeah, that leads me to another question. So, how has this inspired you to work on something else? And do you already have something that you're working on?
I have a couple other ideas. Or do
Did
you
you
want
do
to?
you have something specific?
Well, I think I mentioned when I met you, my mother passed away in a couple of Februarys ago, and I wanted to leave a legacy for her. I didn't know what that looked like. I thought, maybe healthcare reform or something, and that just is out of my league. So I thought, she, I could write about her experiences and do a memoir for her. And her name is
Okay, that's
was
interesting.
Linda.
So, a
Yeah,
memoir about your mom sort of navigating the healthcare system, or what would the theme of it be?
I think the theme would be, um, she had a lot of surgeries. Even starting from, I was a cesarean, my brother was a cesarean, and just anything that could go wrong did go wrong. And
Yeah.
but she also has, she had a lot of joy in her life too with my dad, and I thought, I could start there. It's amazing she's even alive, because my grandfather, her dad, was a tail gunner in World War II, and he crashed in the North Sea and lived to tell about it. So,
Wow.
me even sitting here is a miracle, I think. Mom, mom being
That
here was a miracle. So
that
I'd
sounds
start
like a
there.
book in the making, Sarah, for sure. Have you come up with an outline? Do you have a You gonna start writing it? What's
I'm working on it.
good.
Kind of, I don't want it to just all be about her, bad medical experiences. I want to
Yeah,
sort of,
yeah,
um, infuse a lot of the experiences that she had with my dad. But I think too, as we age, we start thinking about the future and what
yeah,
that looks like. So, walking in the later years, walking through it with her after my father passed away, I have some insight I feel like could help other people, know how to, maybe talk to, the caregivers, or, healthcare,
yes.
to maybe, see more movement in the right direction, or because a lot of that, it can be intimidating when you're,
Yes, it can. Yes, it can.
on
That
your
sounds really interesting. So keep in touch about that. I think that's wonderful. Your protagonist, Ava, give us 3 words that would describe her.
um green. And
Yeah.
uh she's a little feisty, but she's not rude. At least, I hope she doesn't come across that way. And hopeful.
I love that. That seems to be your message is, hopeful. Be hopeful, have hope.
Absolutely.
Do
That's
you have a
we
favorite
should, we should
genre,
always.
Sarah, that you enjoy reading?
I read a lot of like documentary kind of things actually. So I love
Nonfiction.
fiction,
Okay.
but I actually read more documentaries or I guess maybe memoirs is a better word for that. Or
Okay.
I read a lot of devotionals. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So, Sarah, how can listeners support your work, purchase Between the Lines, and connect with you after our podcast?
It's on Amazon. It's also on Barnes and Noble. Um, and that I would say, I do have an audio version, but I always say, read. I think if you read the book yourself, you can fill in the blanks better than if somebody
Yeah.
else's. Maybe it didn't come out exactly how you heard the characters in your head. And I think when you have the opportunity to read and your brain fills in the sounds, maybe the sounds of what's going on in the background or the tone of voice, um, because we all have our own filter. I always try to direct people to the actual book itself. So,
Yeah, for sure. The audio is very nice as well, though, but I would very
oh,
much
did you
recommend
listen
that.
to it?
Yeah, yeah, I did. I like the voice. It was really soothing. Um, so
Aw.
just leave us with this. What is your uh lifelong mantra, Sarah?
Can you say that again? Sorry, you cut out there.
Yes, I said what is your mantra, your daily mantra?
uh, well, the first thing I do before I even get out of bed is, I pray. I pray for the Lord to cover my day. I pray for a hedge of protection, and I could go on and on and on about what I pray, but it's really getting my focus on God and allowing Him to lead my day. And that doesn't mean we're gonna have a perfect day, but it does mean
Right.
that we can look to Him for help and guidance and excuse me, sorry. Rejoice in the good things that do come along.
Well, Sarah, we really enjoyed the book. Hold it up for our viewers and our listeners. Thank you. And we really hope you get working on another one. This was a great debut novel. Congratulations.
Thank you. I might have something in the works. I have a few ideas. So.
Excellent. Keep in touch. Let us know. Thank you so much for joining us, Sarah. This was fun. Next episode, we'll be meeting with Sam L. Feldman, author of Hookups, Hiccups, and Happenstances. This is your hostess, Gabby Olzak, with the Gab Talks. Until next time, keep on reading.